Welcome to the Generate the Lead You Need Summit. I'm so excited that you're here. We're going to show you how to attract more clients, be able to have consistent income, and then go out and have an enormous impact for all of you mission-driven, purpose-centered entrepreneurs. I'm really excited to share with you one of my friends, Dr. Mark Wade, who is the mastermind behind our actually having this summit. So he is the one-day summit king. So Mark, we're so excited that you're here to share your wisdom with us.
Oh, I am stoked to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun on this episode.
Yes, we are. I'm really looking forward to it. And just to give you a little bit of background, Dr. Mark T. Wade is founder of the Virtual Summits software. He is also the creator of the One Day Summit and host and the #1 rated Virtual Summit podcast. He's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs achieve success with Virtual Summit. And he's helping us right now as we do this summit. Dr. Mark went from brick and mortar to a multi-million-dollar online business using the strategy called the One Day Summit Formula, which is what we're going to talk about today. Having created 6, 7, and multi-7-figure businesses, all from using summits. He knows helps some of the top influencers in the world set up their virtual summit using these strategies. So Mark, can't wait to talk about this, and thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, this is going to be a lot of fun, and there is no better place to talk about the One Day Summit than when we're talking about generating leads by solving a problem and building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be interesting because you're usually on the other end of this, aren't you? You're usually the one doing the podcast or doing the interview or telling people how to do the summits.
Oh yeah, I've run my fair share of summits, over a couple dozen summits. I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs actually host their summits, but I'm happy to be on this side of the mic as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, before we get started in the details of the summit itself, I think it'd be really valuable for our audience to hear, as a mission-driven entrepreneur, a little bit about your journey and how you come upon this virtual summit, because you didn't begin in technology.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, I actually began in healthcare. I'm a postural neurologist by trade. I have a couple doctorates and a couple dozen certifications in posture neurology, human function. And I started in brick and mortar practice. And we had one of the most successful posture correction clinics in our country. And from there, I wanted to help more people, but I did not want to expand my brick and mortar practice. I didn't want to open up more clinics, essentially. So I tried this journey into online business, and it was pretty difficult. They definitely don't teach you that in healthcare, for sure. So after about a year, 6 months to a year of struggling, I was trying everything, doing everything I could. I was listening to a buddy of mine, Pat Flynn, on the Smart Passive Income podcast, talk about how he spoke on this concept of a virtual summit. I'm like, well, this sounds pretty interesting. Let's give this thing a go. I've tried everything else. Like, why not at least try this? And at the time, because I was still just getting started, I really didn't have any influence or authority. I didn't have many connections. So I was only able to pull together about 9 speakers, 2 of them being me and my partner, right? So only 7. So instead of just quitting or giving up, I decided, I'm an entrepreneur. Let's be resourceful. We'll just run it in one day and see what happens. I've already gotten everybody to commit. And it actually did really well. It generated 5,000 leads and made around $32,000, which was really awesome. It was the first success I'd ever had in the online world. So momentum-wise, it was great. But really what was even better for me at that moment was that one summit became the backbone for certification, which became a multi-million-dollar certification, and then opened that business up into a multi-million-dollar company, which is still there today, rocking and rolling. But we built that off of summits. I mean, still then and now we run 2 to 4 multi-day summits and 4 to 8 one-day summits in all of my companies, just because it's a powerful way, what we call a collaborative marketing strategy. And then because we were running so many summits and they were not the easiest thing in the world to put on, I built a software called the Virtual Summit software, which was the first software ever designed for hosting virtual summits. And now I spend most of my time going around the world helping entrepreneurs get their message out to the world through a collaborative marketing strategy.
I love that. Yeah, well, that's why because I saw you at an event, that's why I'm having this summit and using your software program in order to do this one-day summit. And it has been really fabulous. But so we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that. But before we do, something that I'd love to have you share with the listeners is, what is your overarching strategy? Like, who would be best served by holding a summit? What kind of market would be best served by holding a summit? And how might this fit into a overarching strategic business plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of little pieces there. We'll jump in, and if I miss one of them, you can just remind me on it. So when it comes to a summit, I mean, the first thing to understand when it comes to business in general, this is my belief, this is my strategy, it's one of my core values, is if we focus on building a relationship and solving a problem, then we can build a business. And sometimes we lose focus on that because we do get caught up in the nuts and bolts. But it really comes back down to solve a problem, build a relationship. Now, one of the reasons we use summits is because they're a collaborative marketing strategy. And actually, I'll come back to that in a second. As far as niches, like who would be best to use it, what industry is best, that's the beautiful aspect of this. Like, it can be done in any niche or any industry. And it's been done in hundreds of niches and industries. And the coolest part about it is the ones that most people think, oh, we could never do it in our niche or industry. Those are usually the areas where it can be done the best. Like, because a lot of times those people have never seen anything like this. And it's a new way of delivering really high value information. So a lot of times the more niche, the more kind of offset the industry, the even more successful it's going to be. Now back to why summits are so powerful. And again, there's two different types of summits. We have a multi-day summit. I think it's really good to understand, especially for all of you listening in here, you are sitting on a summit, but there are different types of summits. So a multi-day summit is anywhere from about 3 days onwards up to 14 days. And it has anywhere from around 20 speakers upwards of 80 speakers. And super powerful, super beneficial, but it's a pretty big, task to take on that. Now, the one-day summit is just as it says, it's 1 day, but it doesn't mean it's a full day in length. It just means that we have 1 day to consume it. And what it's helping and really, really effective at is it helps people get that solution to their problem in a set amount of time. Most of us are busy people, right? I don't have 4 days or 3 days and 40 hours to figure something out that I'm worried about right now. I want it now. And so that's one of the powers of these one-day summits is you can get the information really quickly. Now, a summit is essentially, it's a solution to a problem or series of problems by industry or niche experts that normally would cost the audience thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to access that information or those people. So collaborative marketing wise, why this is beneficial and who it's beneficial to in any of these industries, it's beneficial to you if you're looking to do one of several things. One, you're trying to build your audience. You're trying to build your tribe. Really effective at that because what we're doing is we're offering amazing value for free to people. So it's really great for know, like, and trust because it's what we call a low risk, high value opportunity. Now, so that's building the audience. The other aspect is influence and authority. Well, when we host a summit, we get what we call expert leverage. It's the same reason podcasts exist. It's the same reason like TV shows exist. When I have somebody who has very high expertise or credibility or authority, and I'm on the same platform as them, whether it's a live stage, a TV show, or a summit, the audience looks at us and I leverage the expertise of that person. So my authority and my influence increases based on the people I have on it. And then the other aspect of it is a relationship, a strategic partnership. Because you are having this conversation and you are having this outreach with these experts, you end up building relationships with them. And some of them are relationships that will move on further. So maybe you continue with other partnerships or collaborations even after the summit. And when it comes to business, the quickest way to scale a business is having very successful partnerships or collaborations. So where does this fit in? And I'm hoping I'm remembering all of the questions. Like, where does this fit in as far as your strategy when you're trying to build a business, an online business, or even a brick and mortar business? This will work in physical brick and mortar businesses. Yeah. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of your customer journey. This is where you're building that relationship. You're building this audience that now know, likes, and trusts you. that you've proven to them that you have some expertise, some credibility, and you can help them. Now they're ready to go forward with you on their customer journey. And this is now after the summit where you direct them to the other solutions you have to their problems.
Right. I love that. So you can use it, in terms of being an entrepreneur, you can use it for your initial list building. You can use it every year. Like you said, you do 4 to 8 of these a year. So, Jared Yeldon was giving us this marketing plan. You can slot that into your monthly workshops or your monthly webinars. This is a form of that. So ongoingly being able to help people with that. So I love all of that. And is there a certain personality type of an entrepreneur that this is better for, or is this the kind of thing that pretty much every entrepreneur can learn how to do it?
I mean, what it really comes down to, it's not like which person is it better for. It's more designed towards what do you want? Like everything I always teach or help people with, it always starts as the end in mind. What's your goal? What's your objective? Okay. If your goal is to build relationships, if your goal is to build a strategic partnerships, build an audience, then this is something for you. Like there is introverts, there's extroverts, there's marketers, there's been a summit on, oh gosh, what was it? It was psychic dog, like like the psychics who can read dog, like animal whisperers or whatever. It's like, right. So, I mean, if there's an audience for it, a summit is going to be at least something to consider. I'm not saying you should, like every single person should run it, but I do know that people who run it, that give it the respect, the time, and the effort that it deserves, comes out with positive benefits. I mean, look at it like this. When we think about hosting live events, I mean, the overhead in a live event is tremendous. Like I've hosted many, and the timing that goes into it and the amount of work, all of these things that go into this, and it's still really powerful. And a lot of times they don't even break even, right? But with a summit, you can get the same benefits, same power, same outcomes, except almost none of that overhead, just your time and energy. So it's really, really powerful way to actually build what you're trying to build without having kind of the overhead, the expense, or even the risk, really. I mean, at the end of the day, well, actually, let me bring it back to this. So at a live event, I mean, a lot of people would consider 200 people at a live event a success, right? Like that's a huge success. So when we host a summit, even if you generated 200 or 500 or 1,000 qualified, engaged, what we call leads, I mean, the point is these are people. You generated 200, 500, 1,000 people. You now have 1,000 people who are engaged with you that you can have this conversation ongoing with and hopefully be able to help them ongoing, which then turns into customers. So I wouldn't say who is the summit right for? I would say, where are you at in your business and in your desire to grow? Like, I mean, maybe if you were still like, like a what we call like a side hustler, meaning you're still working full time in a job, but you're trying to build something over here, maybe you don't have the capacity to do it. But if you've got some momentum going and you're looking to kind of get to the next level, then I would say definitely take a look at a summit. And I mean, it comes down to, now with the virtual summit software, makes it so easy that really anybody can do it. This wasn't the case several years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other powerful aspect that I am experiencing in doing this is that when you have your own stage, like people talk about, you want to be able to have those collaborations with these speakers and these thought leaders, and having a stage that you can invite people to is really an awesome thing. And it's so much easier than trying to actually create a big event where you've got hundreds of people. And like you said, that risk is really high. Here, people want to be seen, and it's such a great environment. And then you can say to these thought leaders, hey, come on here, I've got a platform for you. Let me help you get your message out. So that's the other side benefit that has been really fantastic that I've noticed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, that's the whole kind of key to this. Again, I'm to circle it back to my original statement, build a relationship, solve a problem. We can do this in a lot of ways, right? Yeah. We can do this with a live event. We can do this on the phone with somebody. But it's more about like, what is, again, that risk? What is the time consumption that's involved? And what's the quickest, most effective way to kind of get the result you're wanting? And with the one-day summit, in particular, what's really powerful about that, we've been talking about this from an audience generating perspective at this point. So this means, again, you bring a group of industry or niche experts together. They all talk about how to solve this problem. And then the audience gets to access that for free during the time it's available. So this is an extremely valuable thing. Like, for example, my consultation to hop on an hour call with me is $1,250. But people here on this get to hear this information for free. Now, there's 10 other frameworks you can use a one-day summit for. So I guess instead of actually saying like who would be great to do a summit, the aspect is what are you wanting to get? So if you're trying to build your audience, one-day summits for a list builder is great. But there's also these other frameworks we use. So for example, if you already have an audience, but you need to monetize that audience, you can do what we call a premium one-day summit, where you provide incredibly amazing value, but instead of free access, it's a small fee, like 20, 30, 50, 100 something dollars to access that. We do that once a quarter. We'll do that to our list. Usually it's a smaller list, but we find a problem that a majority of our audience has that they need solved. So keep in mind here, this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. Anything you put out, summit or otherwise, needs to have high value, needs to be ethically correct, and solve a problem. So we're not talking about selling something that's of low value, because that'll only work one time and then you're done, right? So we do this with our audience. We find the problems they have. And if people are asking you a question multiple times, that's a problem. You can solve that. And by solving that, you can generate revenue. So we'll actually create a one-day summit on that specific problem. And sometimes we'll just solve it ourselves, or we'll bring other speakers on and call like a hybrid. And then we charge access to that. We do that once a quarter. On average, we send out 4 emails to a list of around 3,000 to 4,000 and generate anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 just from that. But if you've already got some things going, like for example, you do have a live event, you can use a one-day summit to actually increase the engagement of your audience and drive them to that live event. So this is what I love about the one-day summit. So we've got all these other things, like whether you're trying to prime a membership, or you got a product launch, or you have a mastermind, or a book launch even, or a brick and mortar practice. The one-day summit, the way to think of it is it's like pouring a little bit of lighter fluid on a fire. You are increasing know, like, and trust here on the front edge. You're increasing engagement with a qualified audience. So it just increases the outcome on the back end. Whatever that promotion, whatever that thing is you're trying to do, it increases the results of that.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, there's so many different ways that you can use that. So if we wanted to use this, is it better for you to kind of go through a couple more of those reasons why you would use a summit, or would you like to kind of go into the mechanics of how to actually go about creating the summit?
Well, let's go into the mechanics of not necessarily creating the summit, but how to make sure you set up your summit for success. Because if you're just getting started, go with a list builder. That's the first one. You do your first one, and then you can worry about some of the other frameworks as well. But when you're doing a summit, whether it's a one-day summit or a multi-day summit, and here's the thing, I always recommend that people start off with a one-day summit if you've never done a summit before. Because I mean, I love multi-day summits. They're extremely powerful. But if you've never done it before, don't put all that time and energy and potential risk in it and not have it hit. If you do a one-day summit and it kind of doesn't hit, you're out 30 or 60 days. You learn from it, you redo it, and you're good. So when it comes to doing a summit, there's really, from a high level perspective, there's three things that really are the biggest factors into the success or lack thereof of a summit, of a one-day summit, for example. Now, there's all kinds of little things we could get into, but from a higher perspective, the first one is the messaging. Your message has to be on point. So when you're thinking right now, what kind of summit should I do? You shouldn't be thinking, ooh, well, this is a hot topic, or like crypto's hot, or like, ooh, paleo sounds good. Like, it's not about what topic sounds good. It always starts with the end in mind. Where do you want to take this audience to after the summit? What is your goal? Do you have a course, a program, like a coaching program, a membership? Like, where are you going? A live event? Because that's where we start. So let's just assume it was a course. We have a course that we want to direct all of our new audience that we have this relationship to. So that course is going to have a lot of solutions to different problems. I mean, that's what courses do. They solve problems. So we want to pick one problem out of that. What's one problem? Usually, what's the top problem if we know it? We pull that problem out, and now that's what we're going to build our summit around. So, I mean, technically, before you do that, you have to know who your audience is. Like, who's the audience?
Yeah.
So now when we're using this problem, like when we're focusing on this problem, we want to make sure it's a real problem. It's a problem that our audience is actively searching for the solution to. So, for example, in health, if I was going to go, ooh, my audience has thyroid problem. Maybe I'm a functional medicine doc, and so I'm going to do a summit on thyroid problems. Now, that's not bad. The problem is most people aren't out there going, how to solve thyroid problems. They're out there going, why can't I sleep? Why am I bloated? Why do I have headaches? Those are the problems they're actively searching for. So you want to get really specific. People that are looking for lead gen, they're not going, how do I increase my revenue by 10%? They're going, how do I fix Facebook marketing or Facebook ads? You know, what are they actively searching for? Now that's super easy. Now you know the problem. Your messaging is technically going to be the words that your audience would use to describe this problem to you. Now that we have the problem, let's write out anywhere with a one-day summit. It's 5 to maximum 15, with 10 usually being the sweet spot. Now we want to write out the solutions to this problem. Those solutions now become your sessions. And those sessions and solutions tell you what speakers to go out and get. Again, if I was going to be doing, you know,
courses is great. Maybe keep on that same example to keep it consistent.
So if we're going to use courses, so one problem maybe with building a course is like, I don't know how to actually build my course. So a solution to that would be, you know, what equipment do I need? What software, or like camera or microphone? How long should it be? What should I do it about? How do I create the audience? Each of these are solutions. Those now tell you exactly who to go out and pull in as a speaker, an expert on this. Typically, their audience is going to be the audience you're wanting to attract as well, which is why this is a collaborative marketing strategy. We all are benefiting from this. So that outlines the sessions and the speakers you have. So that's the first component of the messaging, okay? And there's a lot more we could get into, but for the sake of time, we're going to go with the third spot, the third aspect that really makes or break like success of a summit. It's the post-summit profit strategy. And you're going, whoa, Mark, like, that's not even a part of the summit. That's after the summit. The problem is I see so many summit hosts put on a good summit and generate an audience, but then they don't have anywhere to take them to, and a month or 2 months go by and that audience gets cold and then no longer responds. They're no longer engaged. You have to engage with that audience immediately after the summit. Typically 7 to 10 days is when you need to offer them another solution, because now they're excited. They're like, okay, I know, like, and trust you. What's next? Like, now how do I move forward with this? And that's where you'll offer them a solution. So again, it could be your course, it could be your coaching program, whatever that is. And because otherwise, the summit's not our monetization strategy. The summit is our relationship building strategy. So we need to have a way like to continue that customer journey, which will also provide profits and revenue. Now, the third component, again, these are the high level stuff. I mean, we could get into, oh, you need to have X amount of speakers or this or this or that. But from a high level, the other component is the interviews. How are your interviews? So how are we structuring the interviews as well as the story? So I like to focus on trying to create what we call a binge-worthy summit. Think of like Netflix, right? Like Netflix has made it so that we are now a binge society. Like you'll watch something, and if we actually create our summits around the concept of a story, like where's our audience starting at and where are we trying to get them to? What's the mission? Like, how do they know they've accomplished something at the end of the summit? So that's the story, what we call the summit story arc. And throughout that, if we think of it kind of like a movie or a book, there's chapters. If it's a one-day summit, essentially there's one chapter. But inside of that, we have a story that we need to tell. We need to take our audience from one aspect to another aspect. Now, if you read a book or watched a movie and all the scenes were like mixed up, you wouldn't watch it or read it. It's confusing. So if we actually align it in a perfect way, it makes it binge worthy, where people are like, oh my gosh, I can't stop. Give me the next session. Give me the next session. And then we need to add into that what we call the action arc. So we need to just put some engagement in it. Now, this may sound complex or maybe it sounds simple. The fact of it is, if you just focus on who's my audience, how do I solve that problem as best as possible, and how do I build a relationship with them, everything else falls into place. But that's the overview of the like technical aspects of setting up a one-day summit. Like right there, you have it. What's my messaging? Who's my audience? How do I tell a story with the sessions? Like, so essentially what that lets you do is when you're picking your speakers, you go, this speaker, I want them to tell this part of the story. Like now we don't need a speaker to talk about everything.
Right.
And that also keeps our speakers from all sounding the same because they're all talking about everything, to having them go deep on one thing and telling one part of this story, to also, after the summit's over, how we can monetize it.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of the journey in the story and how you take the different aspects, getting them from where they are to where you want them to be, and then you break that down, and that becomes your speakers. That's awesome. So as you're doing the interviews, do you also allude to the fact that kind of this is where you you're in their story, in their process, as you know, at the beginning, or do you just understand that they're going to infer that as they move forward?
So when it comes to interviews, and not like the summit does not have to be complex, but we have a lot of like rock stars like Dr. Cynthia here who want to know, how do I not just do a good summit? How do I do an excellent summit? How do I do the best? So when we get into those, there's all kinds of details that we can do to give us like advantages or like really rock it out. So when it comes to the summit interview, the interview is really about prep. It's all about preparation. So we will use, like, we have this, what we call speaker information form that we send over. So we outline the story before we start our recruitment, so we know who we're looking for. A lot of times summit hosts will grab speakers and then try and fit them into the story, which will work. You can do that. But if we take a little bit of time at the beginning, it saves us a lot of time as we go. So we fit out which speakers we want to tell what part of the stories. And then when we actually contact the speaker, we say, hey, this is specifically what I want you to talk on. And actually, this brings up a really good point. Usually when we're talking summits and speakers, a lot of people, especially getting started entrepreneurs, are like, Mark, how am I going to get any speaker to speak on my summit? Right?
Yes,
like,
that was my next question.
So I'll jump into that right now, because I think that's a super common like worry or a fear. Yeah. And here's the thing. When you're trying to get in, and let's say even from my first summit, right? Like, okay, maybe I'm just getting started. I don't have influence or authority. Why would anybody speak on my summit? So there's two ways of this. First off, if we're going to look at like the influencer, like that guru, like the high level, or what we call the anchor, it's not about going after the one anchor. So it's not about me going after Tony Robbins. It's about me going after somebody at his level that can tell the story I need. Because here's the deal. Everybody at some point needs to promote themselves, no matter how high up they are. They need to they have a book coming out, they have a new program coming out, they've got a new business venture they're doing, they're overcoming like positive or negative press. So at some point, somebody needs to promote themselves. Perfect example of this is Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. You know, a little while back, you couldn't get him on an interview. Like, he just doesn't do podcasts or any other interviews, but he had a new book coming out. The month he had his book coming out, he took any interview request that came his way. He did 1,000 interviews. So the point is, it's not about finding Jack Canfield. It's about finding the person that is at that level that it needs to promote themselves. So there's that. The other aspect is that take the burden off your shoulders. It really is not about filling your summit with all A-level guru influencers or whatever that means in your specific industry. The best people to have on your summit are actually what we would say are right below that. Like, they have some success, they have an audience, they've built something, they're an industry expert, but they're still hustling hard. They're still trying to build a name for themselves. They're still working hard on their business, because they are also willing to take almost any opportunity that comes their way, and they will help promote and support you. Like, if you get Tony Robbins on your summit, he's not emailing out for you. But if you get somebody like one of his coaches on your summit, that coach would probably be more than happy to email out for you. So that's the speaker side. So don't worry about the fear of the speakers. Another simple, easy thing to do is just put it out to your audience. We call this social proof. So it also like is what we also call like prepping, like, or preparing for the summit, is kind of putting it out into the ether. Is you could just post on your Facebook page or group, or, you know, your own profile. It's like, hey, I've got this summit coming out. Does anybody know any great speakers? And everybody likes to help, right? Like, they want to feel like they've contributed. So people will tag. They want to feel like, they want you to feel like they've helped you, and they want their speaker friend to feel like they helped them. Like, you do that, you'll just get a list of people. Now, maybe they're not all qualified. You can go through and check them. But when it comes to speaker recruitment, you've got that. And the other beautiful part with the one day summit is you don't need 80, you only need 5 to 10. So you can totally do that.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the ways that it worked for me too is doing just that, not just in my personal Facebook, but I'm involved in masterminds that I've been in over the course of the years, you know, like in Pete's mastermind and Angelique's mastermind and David's mastermind, and put it out and say, okay, hey, I'm doing a summit. Who wants to speak? And then you look like everybody's best friend too, because you are really setting them up for success and co-creating, as you keep talking about. So.
You've got Shandas and you've got this and this and this. Like you're a mastermind expert over there, a go-getter for sure. I'd also say like this, if you're in the position, those of you listening to this, where you're like, well, I don't have like a membership course, or I don't have a course, or I don't have anything. That's another beautiful aspect about a summit is it becomes a product. Like you create a summit, it's a value to generate a list, but then afterwards, it's a valuable product that you can use as an upsell, a downsell, affiliate sale, flash sale, whatever you want. It's really easy to take a summit and use it as a framework, like I was talking about with our certification, and actually just build a course right off of it. So just think of like whatever the theme of the summit, that's your course. Whatever the category or problem you're solving, that's your module. And then each of the sessions are like sections. So each session in the summit or a section in your course, you take all of that information and then put it out through your own perspective in your own words. Don't plagiarize any of your speakers. You now have a course that you didn't even have to like come up from scratch, but you know it's a value because people opted in and they wanted the information. So that's another really awesome part about a summit.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great way to leverage one bit of work. Is essentially what you're talking about. You put in the effort for one thing and it has so many benefits to it. If you just look at it solely from, does this one day summit, am I going to make $1 billion? No, you're not going to make $1 billion, but you're going to make $1 billion worth of relationships, and you're going to begin the process, and then you have the product, and then, then you have that in your system. Yeah. So I love that.
$1 billion in relationship capital. That's what it is. And also one of the things you just said, which is super powerful too, is about maximizing not just the relationship, but the content. Now you've got, let's say 10 sessions that you can go through that. You can chop it up into little video clips. So you got Instagram stuff, you got Facebook aspects. You can put it through like a transcription service, and now you have blogs from it. You can use the videos on your YouTube. Like my summits end up becoming my content for the next 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I love that. So great. So we're going to be seeing Mark Wade everywhere. Mark is going to be everywhere on my platform now. So what is the first step that people should do when they're considering using this and everyone should be considering using this? What is it that you got to share with us, and what is the first step that they can do to use that?
So, and the reason why you should all be considering using it is not, again, a lot of times you'll hear from experts or speakers that are like, ooh, I came up with a really good idea and now I'm trying to sell you on this idea. Like, I'm not selling you anything on this idea. What I'm trying to tell you is like, I've built multiple 6, 7 and multi-7-figure companies using this exact model. I help hundreds of entrepreneurs every day implement this, and I implement it in my businesses. So I'm not telling you an idea that I tried 5 years ago that no longer works. We just did a summit a couple months ago that generated, now it was a multi-day summit, but generated 26,000 leads and made $65,000 just on that summit. Now, the more niche you go, the more powerful it can actually be. So like out of that 26,000 leads, there was probably only like 7,000 qualified, right? Like, so when you do a one-day summit, you kind of avoid the tire kickers, you get really potent. So we did one in the neurology industry, only generated about 3,500 leads, but on the summit, it did around $28,000. But using that post-summit profit strategy, overall, that summit generated over $200,000. Right. So I'm telling you something that works today, not that worked 10 years ago, and it overcomes the biggest problem we're all seeing is attention span. People don't want to, just hop on a webinar to get a pitch, to get pitched at. They want solve my problem and let me build a relationship with you. So the best way to get started in general is not even to think about the summit. It's to think, again, where do you want to go with the summit? What's the end goal? Like, what's your goal? If your goal is to build a list, like, what are you going to do after that? Like, this is, and I have to just repeat this because like the worst thing you can do is build an audience and then not do anything with the audience. So the summit is not the end. The summit is the beginning. So where are we going with that? Identify that problem and that audience. And then your next step is, okay, how much time availability do I have? On average, like if it was your first time doing a one-day summit, you could probably have it done in 60 days, spending, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 hours maximum a week. Some weeks maybe a little bit more if you got a bunch of interviews packed on there, but we're not talking like full time, you know, for 7 months. We're talking about relatively easy to implement, especially if you use any kind of software, you know, to save you on the tech side of it. That's going to take a while. So the next thing would be to get just a little bit of information. Like, I wouldn't ever recommend somebody just go blind at it. And there's all kinds of free information out there. We have some free resources you can have. There's other people with free resources out there. Just get a little bit of an idea of what you're doing and then get started. Pick a date. The thing you don't want to do is go, I'm going to do this and not pick a date, because that date will just keep getting pushed back, But if you put a date on it, you're going to get it done. And here's the thing. The beauty of with a one-day summit is 5 to 15. If you get 7, you're good. Just roll with that. Like I do a series. So I have a couple different summits that I do as series, and I do them in different niches. Our goal is to have 10, maximum 12 speakers on it. But if we get to our cutoff date and we've only got 6, we still roll with it because we're making sure it's still valuable. And honestly, a lot of times the people are like, 6 is way easier to consume than 12. So just get started. Pick a date, get a little bit of education so you kind of know what you're doing. You know, we have the podcast too, which is really powerful from a completely free resource, and then pick a date and move forward.
Yeah. Awesome. So what is it that you're sharing with our audience, this valuable thing that I know you don't typically give away, that we've like twisted your back, internally rotated your shoulder in order to be able to get you to help us move in this process?
Yeah. When Dr. Cynthia calls, I deliver. And so when it comes to your tribe, I'm more than willing to go over the top and give away some cool stuff. So we have what we call our one-day summit getting starter guide. Okay. So this is going to essentially give you that free training you need. I mean, normally we would charge around $250 to $400. But for this crew, we're going to give it away for free. And you're going to be able to see that, I believe, right below this video in that gift that says claim free gift. So this is going to essentially give you like kind of what we've talked about, but more from a point-by-point perspective on how do I select my avatar, how do I come up with the theme of my summit, how do I come up with the sessions and then the speakers, and then how do I get started. So this will get that momentum and that ball rolling. You can grab that there. I'd also highly recommend, even if you're not, like if maybe you're like, Mark, this sounds good, but not yet. Like, so if you're ready, if you're like, let's do this, grab that guide, get started. If you're like, Mark, you still haven't convinced me that a one-day summit's my deal, I would highly recommend checking out our podcast. It's called the Virtual Summit Podcast, pretty much straight on point there. And it's just free resources. And you're not just going to hear from me. You're going to hear stories from other successful hosts, summit speakers, coaches, consultants, etc., on the power of summits, but also on strategies. So I would say grab the guide below. Also be sure to check out the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I know that listening to the videos on your software have been really helpful. And, just being inspired by other people that are doing virtual summits is really helpful too. You know, so a lot of people get nervous about the interview process, but here's one quick tip that I would tell you. Find somebody. Guess who was my first speaker? Was Pat Quinn. Like, how easy was that interview? I was like, whoa, this is a breeze. So choose somebody that is really good, and you will get better and better. Honestly, the more times you do it, you get better. And even if you're not amazing and fantastic, you've gotten all the benefits from it. So have your readers. So I love how you say it's about solving a problem. It's about building a relationship, both with your audience and with the speakers that are on your thing, because it is a way of building a really intimate relationship. You spend an hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes talking one-on-one, like you said, with somebody that you might not normally get access to. So it's brilliant.
Yeah. And to add on that, think of it like this. And like, if I was to reach out to think of whoever that guru is in your industry or your niche, who's like that, top level person. If you were to reach out to them and say, hey, can I pick your brain for 30 minutes to an hour? the answer is like, oh, no, or yeah, here's my consultation fee at $10,000 or whatever. Like, you're not going to get free access to that person. But when you host a summit, you literally get to pick that person's brain for 30 minutes to an hour, almost always for free. And I've had some of our hosts run summits where they've used it as a research project. Like, they needed a problem solved for themselves. So they said, okay, I'm going to run a summit and I'm going to make myself the guinea pig, and I'm going to bring all these coaches or consultants on and have them give me live coaching, but in the form of a summit. And then people opted in to watch it. And so they got the coaching, but they also build their list, their audience, and their influence at the same time.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Next time. Yeah. So thank you, Mark T. Wade. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us, for coming up with this strategy, because I think it is awesome. And I've gotten so much value from it, even before the darn thing launches. So thank you for that. I loved having you here. And I hope everyone goes down and downloads that gift that you've got for them, so that they can at least, even if now isn't the time for them, download it so that you can at least be thinking, okay, this is where I'm going to insert it in. This is what I need to be considering. Because that strategy, honestly, is for everything. It's not just a summit. It is a brilliant way of thinking of things. So thank you.
Yeah. I'd leave you with these two kind of concepts. So we live in what we call like a shared economy now, right? We got Airbnb, we've got Uber, we've got Lyft, we've got all these kind of shared economies. And essentially what that is it's collaboration. And I believe business can evolve into that as well, which is why I think a collaborative marketing strategy is one of the best ways that we can move forward, and all of us helping each other. And then the last thing I'll say is, just know this. Your message matters. You have a message inside of you that the world needs to hear, and a legacy that you need to live. All you need to do is get that message out to the world and make an impact in the world.
Yes, absolutely. And that is exactly, I use that idea in creating this summit, is to solve that problems, how to attract people, how to have that consistent income, which gives you the freedom and the power to make that change. So your message is so on point, and super excited to have you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody tuning in. If I can ever help you in any way, please reach out. I'm here to help.
All right, we're going to go generate those leads.